Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amari Khalid. If you are new here, I post self-development and inner work content to help you become a leader of your life, not in career, but just in how you embody your energy, how you deal with relationships, how you deal with your work life, and how you overall deal with your inner world. If that is the type of content that you want to see, please subscribe to my channel, and I hope you guys enjoy today's video. Before we get into today's video, I know y'all heard that beeping noise and y'all been hearing it the past two videos. Maintenance is scheduled to come today. I hope they don't come in the middle of me recording this video, but if they do, I will pause and handle that because this issue has been going on for weeks now. They've came twice now, and today will be the third time to figure out what's going on with our smoke detector. So I apologize in advance, but they are coming today to hopefully fix the issue. But let's just get right into today's video. If you read today's title, you know that today we're going to talk about some of those trauma responses that you think are your personality. I am someone that can 100% talk about this topic because over the past couple of years, I have did a lot of inner work and healing and understanding that a lot of my ways of coping, of communicating, of acting and reacting was very unhealthy. It was rooted out of survival mode, rooted out of just trying to keep myself feeling safe. Being in that fight and flight response, it was just, how I operated on a daily basis. And I realized that how I was operating was not, serving the greater good. It was not healthy for my marriage, but also other relationships, but also just realizing that it wasn't healthy for me just regarding how I deal with problems in my life, how I deal with stress. And so we're going to talk about some of those things. Of course, this isn't a end-all be-all video. There are so many things that we can always tackle as we're always growing, always learning. But I'm going to specifically talk about the things that I dealt with in hopes that I can help other people who may be experiencing the same thing and are trying to, learn some deep issues about themselves, how they can heal, and just kind of bring awareness to this whole idea of, some of the things that we thought were normal that are not normal and how we can overcome it and just kind of go about it at a different way. So some of the things that we're going to talk about: people pleasing, being hyper independent, and being a control freak. Listen, all those things, I was a queen of it. So we're going to tackle those a little bit, and I'm going to kind of talk about my personal life a lot just to help bring this home and help you guys understand where I'm coming from, and so that you can also self-reflect and look at your own life. So some of the things that you think are your personality are really just about survival. So it's all about you wanting to feel safe, you wanting to not be vulnerable, you wanting to feel like you're in control, not wanting to be rejected, and you exercise that through these different ways of coping / trauma responses. And so that is like the nitty-gritty of today's video. And I want you guys to what I want you to take from this video is that you can reclaim your power and you can choose how you want to react to things. The way that you've been reacting is not healthy, is not, serving, like I said, the greater good, and it's also not allowing you to be that leader of yourself and having control over your emotions and how you want to communicate and how you want to solve problems. So, it's a part of human nature. It's a part of, conditioning. It's because of conditioning. I like what my pastor said, I think it was last week. He said that we are all beautifully broken. And it's to say that, you're not a terrible person. You're not a bad person. You are just operating out of what you thought was normal and what you thought was keeping you safe. And it's just important that you become aware of it so that you can begin your healing journey and that you can start to deal with problems from a more healthy, a more healed place. The point is that you're just trying to protect yourself, and you're not bad for trying to protect yourself. You're not a bad person for wanting to feel safe and wanting to, feel comforting on the inside. It's just becoming aware that what you may have been doing is not good short-term or long-term. So let's just get right into it. So first of all, it's important to know that trauma responses are learned ways of protecting yourself. and it's a coping mechanism. So for example, when it comes to being hyper independent, I was someone who was raised to be independent. I was raised by my mom and my dad, but as a teenager I was raised mostly by my dad, and so he was, very adamant about me getting a job and learning how to manage money. And I took on like my phone bill and I paid half of my car insurance, and I'm grateful for it because he taught me how to take care of myself and how to take care of business and how to put my priorities first. But with that, I also became hyper independent, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. I kind of took on this identity of like, I don't need anyone. I remember being in college and telling him like, I don't need nobody. Like, I don't need your help, because whenever I would ask him for things, I would always get some type of rebuttal back. It was never, yes, here you go. It was always, trying to give me a lecture. Obviously now as an adult, I understand why. But as a kid, I was just like, what's up with that? Why you can't just give me what I want? Why can't you just say yes? Why does it always have to be some follow-up behind it? And so that kind of made me become resentful towards him and just towards anybody, because I also was, having the same attitude towards my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time. And so I became hyper independent, where I just didn't ask anybody for anything. I would then go into survival mode and work 2 or 3 jobs so that I wouldn't have to ask anybody for anything. But it was a coping mechanism. It was how I wanted to deal with not being rejected, with not feeling like, something was wrong with me if I asked somebody for something, or I'm not doing well in life if I have to ask somebody for something, or whatever negative feelings I would get when it comes to even the thought of like asking somebody for anything. I didn't want to feel that. So my coping mechanism was to, be hyper independent. I got it. I can do it all by myself. I don't need nobody. We see single mothers all the time. We see independent women all the time. They're powerful. They're amazing. Yes, like I want to embody that energy. And like I said, I was just protecting myself. I didn't want to feel shamed. I didn't want to feel like, something was wrong with me because I needed help. And so that was just how I coped. So trauma responses are just ways that you learn how to protect yourself as a way to cope with whatever it is that you don't want to really experience or deal with. They once served as a purpose. Like I said, they kept you safe. They kept you, feeling calm. But they weren't healthy. They aren't healthy. And so it's kind of like seeing the difference between like being in survival mode and then having that intentional living energy. So when you're in survival mode, like I said, you're going off of read. You're reacting. You're not thinking. You are on autopilot. You're doing what feels good in that moment and what keeps you safe in that moment, versus being intentional, taking a step back, thinking about it, being critical about the situation, taking the time to breathe and just like take a breath, instead of just like, being on autopilot and making decisions off of, wanting to feel safe, wanting to feel like you're in control. So trauma responses are not a bad thing. They are just ways that you are protecting yourself. And it's important that I reframe that, because if you listen to the wrong person, or to some people the right person, they'll make you feel like something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. You just have to become aware of it and then start your healing journey. It's only when you're super egotistical or prideful and you're not self-aware when it becomes an issue. Even when someone brings it to your attention and you learn about it and you don't want to take action behind it because you're so full of yourself, because change is scary, that's when it becomes an issue. But once you become aware of it and you start to take small steps to make changes, no one can fault you for it. And even when you're not aware and you don't know about it, no one can still fault you for it, because like I said, it's a coping mechanism. It's, conditioning, and it's how we've been programmed as humans to respond. We see it in our parents, we see it in our families, we see it in the generations, we see it in our culture. And it's just important that I and amongst other people continue to bring awareness so that we can all become the best versions of ourselves and act from a place of intentionality versus survival and reaction. So I'm going to list some common patterns that people mislabel. So people pleasing is basically a fear of rejection and a fear of conflict. When you are a non-confrontational person, or you don't want to be seen as a confrontational person, you kind of opt to people pleasing. And this is something that I can definitely speak on. Hyper independence is basically a fear of disappointment or abandonment. So when you're somebody who is just overly independent, you just basically don't want to disappoint yourself, nor do you want to disappoint other people, nor do you want to feel abandoned. You don't want to ask somebody for something and they say no, and then you just feeling alone and feeling like you're not important. So you opt into being this overly independent person. When you are a control freak or you are a perfectionist, you're fully engraved into this whole perfectionism ideology. You are basically just fearing anxiety and unpredictability. So you want to be able to control your outcomes. You want everything to be exactly how you want it to be so that you know what to expect, and also to prevent so-called anxiety, because anxiety is just rooted in fear and the idea of not knowing. And for most people, they want to know everything. They want to be in control. So that's a common pattern that people mislabel. And then emotional numbness. So, not feeling your emotions, being avoidant. That is just a way of protecting yourself, and it's not something that's peaceful. It's not something that brings you true liberation, true empowerment. It's basically just a way for you to control how you feel and not wanting to be vulnerable. And it's just a coping mechanism. And so these are some patterns that people, we just throw these terms out, but they are just mislabeled from what they actually are and what the root is. So me personally, I'm going to speak on people pleasing. And I've actually done a video about some of the patterns that I've healed as someone who is just a young adult figuring life out. I'm going to link that video in my comments. It did pretty well on TikTok and on YouTube. People loved it. People resonated with it. So after you watch this video, go watch that video to get a little bit more in depth of my journey with people pleasing. But I was a people pleaser when it came to my family. I have some cousins that I love dearly. We're all the same age. We're all at the point in life where we're figuring things out. And I had this tendency to do whatever they wanted me to do. When they had birthdays coming up, trips coming up, I will always say yes, because I didn't want to cause conflict, because there was people who were just like, if you don't come to my stuff, it's an issue. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want that conflict, but also I didn't want to have that feeling of rejection as well. I wanted to feel accepted. I wanted to feel loved. So to do that, I would say yes to all the things. When it came to my mom and my siblings and anybody that I could help, I will always say yes to it, no matter if it was pulling from my own cup, which of course there are situations where you will do that, and that's okay. But it was to the point where I was, not reaching certain goals, not getting certain things done, because I was overly people pleasing and wanting to make other people happy at the cost of my own peace and sanity and happiness. So people pleasing was a huge coping mechanism for me, so that everyone could get along, so everyone would see me as being that oldest daughter who can do it all, who has it all figured out, who has it all in control, who can do her own thing and help other people. It was just a coping mechanism. Like I already mentioned, being hyper independent, but also when it comes to being a control freak, I love to say that I'm a recovering control freak, because I love to be in control. But now that I'm in this leadership position, it has allowed me to really exercise that in a healthy way, so that when I'm at home, I'm not having to be that person who always has to be in control or wants to be in control. I can take a step back and let my husband be the leader that he wants to be and should be. And so for me, control came because I didn't have a lot of control growing up. I grew up in a very unstable environment when I was younger, before I hit teenage years. And instability does not feel good, even as a kid. If you know, you know. And so as somebody as a kid who was very aware and I paid attention to so much things, I knew I don't want to live like this. I don't want my kids to experience this, or I don't want, this just doesn't feel good. And so I made sure, one, I went into survival mode. So I always had 2 or 3 jobs, overworking, making sure that I was reaching goals and things of that nature. But it was out of wanting to control certain outcomes and control my life. And it was just unhealthy for me, because it poured into my relationships, it poured into my attitude, and just poured into my work ethic to where I always felt like I needed to be consistently overworking and not getting sleep and not having fun, not doing self-care because I wanted to control money, basically. I wanted to control my bank account. I wanted to control my living situation and being stable. And so these are all patterns that are mislabeled. You know, we see them as being control freak or people pleasing, but there's a root to it. You are just in fear of other things. You are just wanting to protect yourself. You are just trying to cope and deal with the stress in a way that feels safe to you. And that is okay. You just got to become aware of it so that you can break these patterns and so that you like I said, can become the healthiest and the highest version of yourself and the safest version of yourself. You want to feel safe on the inside, not just, you know, physically with your environment and where you live and when you're going out in the world. You want to feel safe in your heart. And so that is why I wanted to bring awareness to this concept of, you know, these patterns and these behaviors that we think are supposed to be a part of our personality, because I thought people pleasing was a good thing. I thought being a control freak was a good thing. I thought being independent was a good thing. You know, it was a part of my personality. Yes, I'm that strong girl. Yes, I'm the girl that can do anything and everything for everybody. Yes, I'm the girl who knows what's this and what's that and what isn't and what isn't. But guess what? That was just me running myself dry. It was not my personality. That's not who I am. It's just how I was coping. So it's important that you know that these things are not your personality. It's not who you are. It's not your character. It's not your morals and your values. And that is the whole point of what I want to get in today's video. So now I want to kind of correlate this or align this when it comes to being a leader of your life. And I want to say this too. Someone commented on my video recently and said that not everyone is meant to be a leader. That is not the type of thinking that I can get behind. I'm not talking about being a leader in your career or in any type of role that you may be in. I'm talking about being a leader of yourself in a sense of understanding yourself and understanding your true self and understanding the truth about life. Unraveling all these things that have been put onto us, all these worldly things, all these fake philosophies and ideologies that we think are normal and are not normal, and taking a little bit more control over your emotions and how you operate, and having more discipline, having more self-control, and just understanding that you can choose the path that you want to take in life in alignment with God. That's what I mean when I say lead your life, instead of just like drifting and allowing the world and your parents and people to tell you which way you shouldn't go and which way you should go. You know, being a leader of your life is just having some autonomy and some solitude. So I just wanted to say that because it's not about career at all. It's just about how you see yourself and how you see the world and how you operate within the two. So when it comes to that, it's important that you have self-awareness. That is the first step. I couldn't start any of my healing until I became self-aware. And sometimes self-awareness comes in different ways, whether you read something in a book, you see something online that you resonate with, or most importantly, you have people in your life who keep it real with you, who help you become more aware. So for me, that was my husband. He really has been on this journey with me, and vice versa when it comes to being aware of some of the things that we need to heal and overcome so that it will better ourselves, but also better our relationships, whether that's at work, whether that's with your romantic partner, with your family, whatever the case may be. It's important that you become self-aware first. If you are making decisions that are all about protection, you are just reacting instead of leading. So you want to get away from just reacting, and kind of being proactive, seeing things before they happen, or kind of anticipating how things may make you feel, and kind of going ahead and coming up with ways that you can cope before the thing happen. That's a very hard thing to do, trust me, but it's important that you kind of get away from doing things out of protection, because that leads to, being in survival mode, not wanting to be rejected, the people pleasing, wanting to control the outcome. And then instead of that, you want to come from a place of being a leader and not letting these things control you so much that you kind of just become unconscious and make decisions that aren't better for you short term or long term. For example, I work in a very stressful work environment. We're consistently, we're chickens a lot of times. And because I'm a leader, I have to be intentional with how I react to things and what my team is seeing and, just how I deal with conflict. If I were to make decisions based on survival, I would lash out all the time. I would not accept help from anybody, being that overly independent person. I would be too emotional or not be able to regulate my emotions when things come up. And also, I wouldn't be able to empathize with my staff. And so it's important that I went on this journey of self-awareness and inner work and growth, because it pours into other areas of your life. It's just not about how you deal with things, but it's also about how you deal with conflict in the real world. Everything that I teach you can be applied to the real world. It's not just you and your partner or you and your family. It's also how you deal with things when you go to work, when you're in traffic, when you at church, when you are on a trip, when you wherever on social media. It's not just about your household. It goes way deeper and beyond that, and that's why it requires some deep work. So unhealed wounds, they will show up in your relationships, in your work, and also in your self-image and how you perceive yourself. So once again, it's just important that you become aware of some of those patterns that you have that are not, serving the greater good and not allowing you to be that best version of yourself. So are you people pleasing? Are you hyper independent? Are you a control freak? Do you abandon your feelings a lot? Do you avoid conflict? Do you avoid the hard conversations? Those are some things that you need to become aware of as you start to become aware and self-aware and, start your inner work journey. Some things that you can ask yourself is this truly me, or is this something that I learned? For me, I learned a lot from my family, seeing how my parents react to things. I thought they were normal. Some of the things that they told me were normal, I was doing those things and they were not. Awareness allows you to create choice. You will be able to choose your reactions instead of acting out of survival mode or fight or flight, because basically when something happens, you just react based on how you feel in that moment. Another example that I can give when it comes to people pleasing. When someone would hit me up and ask me to do something for them, I would immediately say yes without even thinking about it. And then after the fact, I would be like, but dang, I was supposed to do this. Dang, I was supposed to work on this. Dang, that's kind of messing up my schedule for the day. Not to say that can't happen sometimes, but I was doing it more than I should. So I just want to give you guys a little bit more examples when it comes to, how this shows up in my everyday life, or how it used to show up in my everyday life. Because now I have strong boundaries, strong self-respect, and I am able to choose how I respond to things versus just acting off of impulse. Because that's another huge thing when it comes to this, is the fact that most of the time when you're in these different personalities, you are acting off of impulse instead of truth. So from this point on, you are just updating how you respond to things. You're not erasing your past. You're not erasing your experiences. You're not forgetting your experiences. It's just allowing yourself to kind of find the root of things, understand why you do certain things, what caused it, where did you learn these things from, and then updating now how you want to deal with problems and create better solutions for yourself moving forward when things come about, when people ask you things, when, unexpected expenses come up, or when you get into an accident. You want to have better ways to deal with problems instead of just reacting based on what you were taught from the past. It's about building that inner leadership and just being able to have more autonomy and have more calmness and more peace when you make decisions, instead of making decisions and then regretting them afterwards. So I hope you guys can take something from this video. Like I said, in the description box, I'm going to put the other video where I went into depth with some of the toxic patterns that I healed. Like I said, these don't make you a bad person. It's just how you cope with yourself and how you were able to control the situation in the safest way possible. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, if you can resonate with any of this. And I will see you guys in my next video.